Next, we'll hear from Rachel. It's very rare to meet a lady engineer, generally in life. I mean, look around the room. But Rachel is a lady engineer, or studied engineering at Imperial College, and so I'll let her tell you her story.
Hi, thank you everyone, and thank you so much to Davina and Jennifer for having me here. When I tell people that I study mechanical engineering, one thing that really sticks out is this. It makes me feel quite special, because special in that I feel quite like a minority. They'll go like, wow, you want to study engineering? You must be surrounded by guys. And actually that's true, because in my course, there's probably like 10 girls to 90 guys, you know, so yeah, that was the situation. So another response, right, that was very memorable is something like sort of a doubting type of question. Wow, you really want to become an engineer, is it? You have to work in tough environment, you got to get your hands dirty, you know, you got to climb ladders. I was like, okay. I currently work as an M&A analyst in PETRONAS, and M&A stands for Mergers and Acquisitions. Basically, that means I take charge of projects where we buy shares in a company or sell shares in a company. So far from being an engineer, I actually ended up in a desk job, very comfortable, no need to climb ladders, maybe the corporate ladder lah. But so how did I end up here, right? Growing up, I had an interest for the science. So after SPM, I did the whole, sign up for A-levels, preparing for university in the UK. At the time, the idea of studying engineering didn't actually occur to me that early on. I actually signed up to do A-levels because I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go to medical school. Okay, how many of you here are working on your personal statements for university? Anyone? No?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
It's coming.
It's coming. So usually in personal statements, right, we will describe a section where, okay, how did we decide to study this particular subject, you know, in a oceans of many choices. And then I'm sure okay, it's very typical that you start with a story, okay, you know, there was this moment of inspiration, and then at that point, I realized that I wanted to become an engineer, for example, right? You know, so often we simplify decision making to like a point in time, a sudden insight, you know, like an aha moment kind of thing. But to be honest, right, is that really what happens? Personally, what I did in my personal statement, obviously I went down that road. I had a paragraph like that in my personal statement. But honestly, if I was not limited by word count, I probably would have been a bit more true to myself and described a long, messy process of decision making. You know, how I gone through 1.5 years of A-levels just to find that, okay, I had a really huge passion for physics. And then how I did, you know, like I did research on career options, so hours and hours of research. I spoke to so many people, I did job shadowing, and then all the 1.5 years led to a single moment where it was really just that final moment of inspiration that ties it all together and be like, yeah, I really want to be an engineer, you know. So it's that process that we often leave out, I feel, and you know, without all this work, this investigative work, I would never have gotten to my like light bulb moment, you know, at that point in time. So by the time I completed A-levels, I already actually had a few offers to go to medical school. But I gave that all up. I filed a fresh new application to study engineering. So given the timing, it meant that I had to take a gap year, okay? And I know for many people, gap year is like makes you kind of like nervous. You know, the idea of it brings to mind a fear of being left behind, right? And I had those worries too, but I was really lucky to have parents who were very supportive of me, and I never felt that I was pressured to rush on to the next phase of life. And you know, throughout my gap year, I got to do so many things that I wanted to do. For example, I developed my artistic side, so that's when I took up dancing. And dancing actually, you know, became such a central part of my life in university, and even till today, that I feel like it's something that I really can't live without, honestly. And then gap year also meant that I used that time to look for scholarships. And so when the offer to do a Masters of Mechanical Engineering at Imperial College London came, I applied to PETRONAS and then I received a full scholarship. So at Imperial, right, I was surrounded by straight A students. Everyone's really smart, so it's really stressful. The workload was heavy. There was like so many nights that I spent at the library. I studied till my eyes were red. You know, used the computer till, yeah, the next day I had an eye infection. I still remember. And it happened a few times. I'm not sure why. It's really weird. But I feel like it's the passion for the subject that really brought me through at the end of the day, you know, through those really hard times. And of course, outside of studies, I did things like, obviously I made dancing a central part of my life, you know, being a newfound hobby. And what I did was participated in many like showcases. I represented my university in national competitions, so I went around UK competing in dance, so that was really fun. Then of course, outside of, I mean, the exciting times, right, in London, you're like a uni student, you know, actually it's not 100% rosy, right? I mean, take one example, falling sick, right? At home, if you're sick, you have your parents, your family around you, right? I feel like you're allowed to be a bit helpless, you know. You want to rest, you want to take your time to recover, that's okay, you want to curl up in bed. But when you're living alone in London, you have to drag yourself to the hospital. Like literally one time I had such bad stomach cramps from food poisoning, right, that I had to drag myself to the emergency ward. Like I had to take a bus, and I felt quite sad at that point. I think there are lessons that, you know, like through these kind of small experiences, living on your own, studying abroad, that really you can't learn from textbooks, and you can only learn these things when you live independently on your own. Like for example, handling your own finances, right? Like never buy cheap groceries if it's gonna give you food poisoning. Okay, that was my mistake. You know, and you know how like when times are tough, how do you motivate yourself when you feel lonely, when you feel stressed, when it's winter and it's cold? Yeah, so it's those experiences that really teach you a lot of things about yourself. So after graduating from Imperial, I moved back to KL and I worked for PETRONAS to serve my scholarship bond. And they assigned me a role in M&A, which is my current role. I remember Googling what M&A was, because honestly I had no idea. I didn't take a single business module during uni unless I was forced to. So I was like really clueless in that department at that time. So being in a role that's completely different to what my passions were and what I was gearing up to really do, actually, I felt like it was really different, and it was if my life was a story, it felt like an unexpected plot twist, you know? So yeah, I think I didn't even update my LinkedIn profile until like 2 years into the job, because I was like, how do I make sense of my narrative, you know, on my CV? Suddenly like M&A like feels very out of place. So remember just now I talked about the investigative process. I found myself being in that loop again, because constantly, day to day, you know, as Nanda mentioned, you got to get the job done no matter what, right? So I had to sort of ask myself, what am I really good at? How can I leverage my skills into something unrelated? What's my next goal? Where do I move on from here? So it's been 3 years that I'm on this job, and I'm really grateful that I work in a very tight-knit and highly driven team that taught me a lot of things. And I even helped, it was quite rewarding when last year I helped PETRONAS you know, close our first acquisition of a renewables company. So that was a really rewarding thing. And I feel that after all this time, do I regret all my decisions, given all the detours I've taken, and you know, just looking at where I am now? The answer is no, I don't regret a single thing, because I feel like we might not be able to change our circumstances, but we can change our responses to them. And you know how like the typical image of success, when you read about other people's story, it usually goes like very linear, right? But then in reality, it's like linear-ish, but then, okay, like trial and error, maybe you go a bit, then U-turn, detour, roller coaster, right? So that's the reality of it. And I feel like to really move, really live your best life, you should, I feel like what helps me is to be open, both to possibilities and learning. And I feel that if you live your life knowing that there's only one path you can travel, right, you're bound to veer off and feel like you failed. But what if you lived your life thinking that, okay, so many possibilities, so many paths to happiness, right? So this is one thing that I'm also trying to figure out in my life as I move on, thinking about my next, where should I go next? And yeah, so be open to learning. That's one thing that I really had to learn in my journey so far. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. I feel it was the same for me as well as a young person. This idea that life is an upward trajectory, I leave university and it's going to be fabulous. It's not been not fabulous, but at the same time, as Rachel describes, it's more sort of like that rather than like that.